Everyone thinks I cut ties with my parents because of money. That's the story they tell, anyway. The truth is darker. If you knew what I found, you'd never forgive them either. I had no idea my family was planning a surprise trip to Greece until I saw it plastered all over Facebook. My mom had posted a picture with the caption, "Nothing but real family on this journey." There they were, my parents, my sister Sarah and her boyfriend, my brother Mark and his girlfriend. All standing on a sun-drenched cliff in Santorini, holding glasses of wine like something out of a travel magazine. And me? I wasn't invited. Not even mentioned. I scrolled past it in silence, pretending it didn't feel like a slap in the face. Maybe, I told myself, they paid for it on their own. Maybe someone gave them a gift. Maybe anything but what it really was. 2 days later, reality punched me square in the chest. I opened my banking app to check my emergency fund, an account I almost never touched, and my heart dropped. The balance was drained. Nearly $7,000 gone. Flights, hotels, ferry rides, a luxury resort, a private cruise, all neatly lined up in transactions. I froze. My hands shook as I scrolled through the charges. The dates matched. The destinations matched. The photos matched. It wasn't some stranger. It was them. My family. That account wasn't for fun money. I built it dollar by dollar from side jobs and late nights. It was my safety net, what I'd need if I lost work, or ended up in the ER, or my car gave out in the middle of nowhere. And they blew it all on cocktails by the Aegean Sea. I thought it couldn't get worse. I was wrong. An hour later, my sister sent me a text. At first I thought it was for me, until I read the words, "He won't notice. His account's barely active." Then another message followed, "We'll just say we thought he wasn't using it. LOL. I stared at the screen in disbelief, my blood boiling. Then, with shaking fingers, I typed back, I noticed. Silence. No excuses. No apologies. Just silence. I called the bank immediately. Reported every charge. Flagged the account. Shut it down. I gave them every name, every detail. The rep hesitated for a second and asked carefully, "So, just to confirm, this was your own family?" "Yes," I said. My throat was dry. My own family. The next morning at 6:03 a.m., my phone lit up like a fire alarm. 23 calls back to back. Mom, Dad, Sarah, even Mark, who normally avoids dialing anyone. They must have woken up in Greece to decline cards and cancelled bookings. Their vacation, their little fantasy world, was unraveling. I didn't pick up. Instead, I sent one message, "If you want to change anything, come home now." Because I meant it. This wasn't going away. This wasn't some oops, family misunderstanding. This was theft. This was fraud. And this was going to court. But they didn't rush home. That was the first sign they still didn't take me seriously. The calls kept coming. Then came the texts. Sarah's first, "Okay, what's going on with your card? We need to talk, LOL. Fake casual, like she hadn't just wrecked my savings. Then Mom's, "Let's be calm about this, Henry. We didn't think you'd mind. We'll figure something out when we get back. No need to overreact." Overreact? They'd stolen the one account I swore I'd never touch unless my world fell apart. Mark stayed silent, but his girlfriend Ally reached out. I didn't know. I feel sick. They told me it was all taken care of. I wouldn't have come if I knew. I didn't reply. Not yet. But I filed that away. That night, I got on a video call with my lawyer. He didn't flinch. Calm. Precise. He told me point blank, yes, this was fraud. Yes, we could take it to court. Family or not, it didn't matter. In fact, it made it worse, proof they knew exactly what they were doing. I told him to move forward. I wanted it on record. The next morning, my phone exploded again. This time it wasn't just calls. It was frantic messages. Their cards had been declined everywhere. The bank had locked their reservations, cancelled bookings, flagged their entire trip as fraud. One message from Mom burned into me, "We're stranded here now. Are you happy?" And another, "How could you do this to us?" I stared at that one for a long time. Then typed back, "Return immediately or deal with this from overseas. Either way, I'm not stopping the case." Hours later, silence. Then suddenly, flight confirmations hit my inbox. They were coming home. The next morning, around 10 a.m., I heard it. A knock at my door, slow, deliberate, like they already knew I wouldn't want to open it. Against my better judgment, I did. And there they were. All 6 of them. My mom stepped forward first, putting on this half-rehearsed speech about misunderstandings, and family, and forgiveness. She actually tried to spin it like they assumed my emergency account was shared. I laughed in her face, it was such an obvious lie, I couldn't even pretend to take it seriously. My dad stood there with his arms crossed, chest puffed up like he was the victim, while Sarah dove right into her guilt trip. She whined about how I had embarrassed them, ruined their trip, made them feel like criminals. That last part almost made me lose it. Like, really? Mark finally opened his mouth, and all he could say was, "Just unfreeze the account and let's move on." I told them flat out, I wasn't unfreezing a thing. The bank was investigating. My lawyer was filing a case. This wasn't going to be swept under a rug. That's when my mom snapped. Her voice cracked as she shouted, "This is what you do to your own family? You're ruining your parents' lives over a vacation. You should apologize to us, and to your sister and your brother. This is ridiculous." I just stood there, letting her words echo in the silence. Then I asked, "You used my money without permission. Lied about it. Cut me out completely. And now you want me to apologize?" Sarah's face twisted. You're seriously going to sue us? Yes, I said, steady and calm. And you're lucky all I'm doing is suing. You're lucky I'm not pressing criminal charges. That was when I saw it, the flicker of real panic. The exact second they realized this wasn't a family spat anymore. This was legal. This was dangerous. I told them to leave. My dad's jaw tightened like he wanted to explode, but he didn't. My mom stormed out, muttering under her breath. Sarah called me vindictive as she stomped down the hall. Mark didn't even look at me. Only Ally lingered for half a second, lips parted like she wanted to speak, then turned and followed the others. I shut the door and locked it. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt done. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was the beginning of something bigger. I gave them 3 full days after they landed. Not because I was merciful, but because I was curious. I wanted to see if even one of them would step up, admit what they did, try to make it right. Nothing. Not a single apology, not 1 cent repaid. Just silence, like they thought I'd cool off and move on. On the 4th day, my lawyer filed the paperwork. An official complaint, unauthorized use of financial assets totaling $6,837.42. Filed under intentional misuse. We attached everything, transaction records, fraud reports, Sarah's incriminating text, my sworn affidavit, even a detailed timeline. It looked airtight. That same day, my parents tried showing up unannounced again. This time, I didn't even get off my chair. I sat in the kitchen, sipping coffee, while I listened to them argue outside my door. My dad's voice, low, saying we should fix it quietly. My mom's sharp and shrill, convinced I'd come around if they grilled me hard enough. After 10 minutes, they left. I didn't move. 2 days later, they all got served. Dad was in a morning meeting when a man in a windbreaker handed him an envelope in front of his coworkers. Mom got hers at the front door. I heard she slammed it so hard the windows rattled. Sarah was served at her apartment with her boyfriend standing right there. She texted me immediately, "You are sick. What kind of brother does this?" Mark's papers were delivered at work. I didn't hear from him directly, but Ally said he dismissed the whole thing as a show, claiming I just wanted to punish them for being happy. That night, Sarah posted this long, self-righteous rant on Instagram. It started with, "Sometimes blood doesn't mean family." Then she spiraled into accusing me of being controlling, of blindsiding everyone, of turning on them like I was some sort of traitor. Her followers jumped in, siding with her, of course they did. She conveniently left out the part where she stole my money to play rich in Greece. Then came the group call. They must have been in the same room because it was chaos the second I answered. Mom's voice cut through first, "You've taken this way too far. You're tearing this family apart over a misunderstanding." Dad chimed in, "It wasn't theft. It was a shared family fund. There was no such thing. That card was in my name. Always had been." Mark accused me of making them look like criminals. Sarah, as always, went for the throat, calling me vile. I stayed quiet until they all burned themselves out. Then I said, slow and clear, 3 options. Admit what you did and face the consequences. Fight me in court and lose. Or beg. They all started shouting again, so I hung up. The silence after that was different. Heavier. They finally understood I wasn't bluffing. Later, Ally texted me. She said things at Mark's place had gotten tense. He was lashing out, blaming her for not warning him how serious I was. She admitted her mom had been ranting in the family group chat, trying to turn everyone against me. But then she wrote something I didn't expect. "I'm not with them on this. What they did was disgusting. You're the only sane one here." She added, "They always treat you like a backup plan. I've seen it. They act like you owe them just for existing. I think you're doing the right thing, even if it hurts." I sat there staring at that message, letting it sink in. And that's when everything clicked. They didn't just steal money. They stole from the one person they thought would never fight back. They counted on me staying quiet, taking it like always. Maybe, if I was lucky, they'd mail me a souvenir t-shirt from Santorini when it was all over. But this time I had nothing left to lose. And everything to gain. Because the moment they got served, it stopped being about family. It became about justice. And they thought court was the worst thing that could happen? They had no idea. A week after they were served, my phone lit up with a call from my lawyer. His tone was calm, but the question he asked caught me completely off guard. "Would you be open to a public hearing?" I paused. "You mean, like anyone could attend?" He explained that if they didn't settle, it could go to open court. And because it involved family fraud and financial misuse, it might even draw media attention. I didn't hesitate. Let it be public. And just like that, their worst nightmare began brewing. Whispers started spreading. My uncle called out of the blue, "Hey, is it true things are that serious?" My cousin messaged me nervously, "What happened between you guys?" Even my mom slipped, telling someone, "Your parents might be going to court." I didn't need to feed the fire, they were doing that all on their own. Then the fallout began. My dad's employer pulled him aside for a compliance review. Turns out when you work in anything even remotely tied to finance, being named in a public fraud suit sets off alarms. He wasn't fired, but he was reassigned. Lower profile. Embarrassing. Sarah's boyfriend? He didn't stick around. Packed up, moved out, blocked her on everything. I only found out because Sarah posted one of those vague, tear-streaked Instagram videos, talking about how betrayal comes in waves. Someone sent it to me. I didn't bother watching the whole thing. Then Ally called. Her voice was shaky. "You need to know something," she said. She'd overheard Mark and my mom in the backyard, whispering about how they might spin this, claim I had verbally approved the charges, pretend it was consent, twist it however they could. Ally told me straight, "If they try to lie, I'll testify." I was there. I know what happened. I believed her. And I told her, if you need protection from their drama, I'll help however I can. That's when the panic set in. My mom called me sobbing. Not the fake crocodile tears Sarah specialized in, real, guttural crying. She begged me to stop, swore that if this went to court, she and my dad would lose everything. Their retirement, their savings, their reputation. Please, she said, don't do this to us. I asked her one question, did you think about any of that when you booked the trip? She hung up. 2 days later, they tried to settle through my lawyer. Full repayment, plus $500 for damages, if I dropped the case and signed an NDA. I refused. I wanted it on record. The night before the hearing, there was a knock at my door. Mark. I didn't let him in. He paced in the hallway, muttering through the crack. You're going to regret this, man. You don't know what you're doing to this family. I stayed silent. Then he said something that stuck to my ribs like poison, you're not even one of us anymore. And that's when it hit me. That trip to Greece without me? It wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. They had cut me out a long time ago. In their minds, I wasn't part of the family. Just someone convenient to drain when they needed cash. It was never just about the money. It was about finally seeing the truth. They weren't my family. They were just people I happened to be related to. Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. court. I got there early. Not just because my lawyer wanted me to, but because I needed to breathe, to prepare. Sleep hadn't come the night before. My mind had spun through every possible outcome. Would they cry? Would they lie? Would they try to apologize? 5 minutes before the session, they filed in. My dad in a wrinkled suit, jaw tight. Sarah in a borrowed blazer, clutching a manila folder like it was a shield. My mom, tense, her face already red. And Mark, blank as always, like a man pretending not to feel cornered. They sat across from me. Didn't even look my way. The courtroom was small, the air echo quiet. 2 reporters in the back. A neighbor I recognized slipped in too, scanning both sides like she wasn't sure where to plant her loyalty. Seeing the docket, Henry Wilkins v. The Wilkins family, typed on the board outside, it almost felt like I was watching someone else's life unravel. The judge entered, an older woman with a no-nonsense presence. She didn't waste time. My lawyer stood, laid everything out. The timeline. The transactions. The fact that the account was mine alone. IP addresses tied directly to my parents' house and Sarah's apartment. The travel receipts with their names. And finally, Sarah's text. He won't notice. His account's barely active. The silence in the room after that was deafening. Everyone understood. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a slip-up. It was a plan. Then it was their turn. My dad went first, trying to look reasonable. He said they believed the account was shared, that it was used in good faith. The judge cut him off. Is your name on the account? No. Was your son informed before these charges were made? No. Sarah jumped in, voice shaking. She claimed I'd always helped before, that she assumed I'd want to contribute since I didn't seem interested in joining them. The judge asked me directly, were you invited on this trip? No. Mark stayed stiff, expression locked. My mom crumbled into tears when the judge summarized. This isn't about miscommunication, the judge said, voice sharp. This is about entitlement. About deliberate misuse of financial access. The court finds the plaintiff's claims valid and supported by the evidence. The ruling. Full repayment of $6,837.42. Plus $2,000 in civil damages for emotional and financial distress. And, what none of them expected, 30 days of community service for both of my parents. The judge ruled it was premeditated misuse, deliberate exclusion, manipulation. The gasp from Sarah was audible. Mark muttered, unbelievable. My mom froze mid-protest. My dad's face went stone. The bailiff handed them papers, repayment timeline, penalty instructions, community service details. It was official now. Inescapable. Outside, I stood by the courthouse steps, letting the cold air wash over me. Across the plaza, Ally waited near the fountain. When I met her eyes, she gave me a small nod. Simple. Steady. It meant everything. Then I saw them leave. Sarah stormed past reporters, shoving cameras away. Mark trailed behind, already glued to his phone. My dad looked hollow, like the ground had caved in beneath him. And my mom, she stopped right in front of me. Her eyes burned into mine. You've destroyed this family, she hissed, as if it were the final word. But I didn't answer. Because I knew the truth. I hadn't destroyed anything. They were the ones who burned the bridge. All I did was stop pretending it was still standing. It didn't take long for everything to unravel. The very next day after the trial, I started getting emails from the court system. Payment plans had been enforced. My parents' wages would be docked month by month, and if they even thought about missing one, the consequences would escalate fast. My lawyer told me they tried to negotiate again, this time offering to repay the principal but not the damages. We declined. That same afternoon, I blocked every one of their numbers. I knew they'd try to reach me eventually, not to apologize, of course, but to squeeze in one last guilt trip or attempt to rewrite the story. I wasn't interested. I had my closure. But the silence I expected? It never came. Instead, the begging began. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years started sending me screenshots, texts from my mom and Sarah trying to explain what had happened. Some begged them to convince me to back down. A few even tried guilt. He wouldn't really want us to suffer like this, would he? Even strangers began messaging me on social media, parroting lines that sounded rehearsed. My cousin pulled me aside one day and told me straight, my family was telling anyone who would listen that I was mentally unstable, brainwashed by a manipulative lawyer. I didn't respond. Not once. I'd said my piece under oath, on record, and that was enough. A few weeks later, the fractures deepened. Mark officially cut me off. Ally told me he texted the family group chat, "As far as I'm concerned, Henry's no longer my brother." Sarah scrubbed me from her socials, unfollowed me everywhere. Her Instagram bio changed overnight, starting over with real ones only. My mom quietly deleted all her trip photos. My dad? Radio silence. But through all of it, Ally never stopped checking in. She left Mark just days after the trial. She said she couldn't stand how they handled everything, how no one took responsibility, how quickly they painted me as the villain. She said, "You did the right thing. I saw what they were like behind your back. Honestly, I'm glad it all came out." We started talking more. Not about the case, not always. Just about life. Work. What family really means, or doesn't. Strange, really, that the only genuine connection I had left in the wreckage wasn't even with someone I was related to. One day, about a month later, Ally called. Her voice was steady but heavy. "You know they're still obsessed with you, right? Still talking about how you ruined their lives." I smirked. Good. Let them talk. But before hanging up, she added something that made me pause. "Your mom's been trying to meet with someone. I don't know who, but Mark mentioned she's got a plan. Something about reversing the ruling." I didn't answer. Just listened. Maybe it was a bluff. Maybe desperation. Or maybe they still hadn't learned. And if they came for me again? This time, I'd be waiting. 3 months passed. Life settled. Quieter. Better. I moved to a new place across town, closer to work. Didn't give the address to anyone. Not even Ally, not at first. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I wanted peace. Real peace. The money began trickling in. Court-ordered repayments, small but steady, hitting my account on schedule. They never missed one. Probably couldn't afford to, skipping would have triggered wage garnishment. Ally and I stayed close. Not dating, not exactly, but something unspoken was there. A bond forged in fire. She told me once, that family runs on manipulation. They expect loyalty without giving any back. I want no part of that anymore. Then, one Friday afternoon, my lawyer called. I hadn't heard from him since the final paperwork, so I assumed it was routine. It wasn't. He told me someone had filed a petition to have the judgment reconsidered. I didn't even need to guess who. My mom. She claimed emotional distress, legal misrepresentation, misunderstood intent. She even filed a statement suggesting I'd been coerced into pressing charges. Weak. Desperate. But it had to be reviewed. I showed up to the review hearing without hesitation. This time there were no cameras, no curious neighbors, just a quiet side room and a judge who already looked annoyed the case had been reopened. My lawyer dismantled their petition in minutes. He pointed out the contradictions, the lack of new evidence, the absurd claim I'd been manipulated into suing. And then, he pulled out something I hadn't seen coming. A letter. Signed by Ally. She hadn't told me, but when she heard about the petition, she'd contacted my lawyer herself. The letter detailed everything she witnessed, the secret planning, the smug way they talked about using my card, the laughter when they thought I wouldn't notice. When the judge read the last paragraph out loud, my mom tried to interrupt, her voice frantic. The judge shut her down immediately. Petition denied. The ruling stands. That was it. Final. No more appeals, no more last-ditch tricks. The last thread snapped. I wasn't tied to them anymore, not by guilt, not by obligation, not by silence. And just like that, they stopped. No more calls. No more half apologies. No more pretending. Just nothing. For the first time in my life, nothing felt like freedom.